Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Enlightening Your Way. I am your host, Nancy Lombardo. We are airing on the official Lilydale Assembly Facebook page and YouTube channel. I am a leaseholder in Lilydale and the president of the Church Living Spirit, which is an independent spiritualist church on the grounds. I'm also a military veteran and retired police detective, fitness and yoga instructor, and wellness is my passion. This show is a combination of my many life experiences and features various topics and guests to help enrich one's mind, body, and soul on your pathway to healthy living. My website, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, where my motto is protecting and serving your well-being. And today I'm so excited to introduce our special guest, Iris Libby. Is a seasoned astrologer, trans-channeler, medium, and certified spiritual advisor with over 40 years of experience helping people get their lives aligned with spirit and purpose. Iris started having visions early as 6 years old, and then later turned to astrology, not just to validate her visions, but to build a language around them. Before embracing her spiritual calling, Iris had a very successful career as a chief operations officer, a director of talent acquisition at Amazon, and later managing and directing her own executive search firm. Today, Iris blends sharp business instincts with spiritual insight, helping others find clarity and direction. Iris recently co-authored the best-selling book, Awakening Your Path, You Are Not Broken. It is a guide to releasing emotional triggers. And you can catch Iris dishing out daily astrology wisdom on her popular TikTok and Instagram at Ask Iris Libby. Welcome, Iris. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Nancy.
Of course, I love to have you on this show. I love it very much. So I'm just going to get started. You'd asked me before, Sam. I was like, I don't like to send questions. I like it just to be a conversation. And so you don't even have a clue what we're going to talk about. Well, we are going to talk about the portal. But before we get to that, I know in your bio, you talk about having visions at 6 years old. But how did that visions turn you into looking into astrology for validation?
Well, I knew that there was more, and I believe that I started to use astrology almost as tarot cards, the glyphs, because I felt that there was something beyond our physical here, and there was energy at play. And like when I was a kid, I used to read Stranger Than Science, Stranger Than Truth. I loved the Twilight Zone. I loved anything that had to do with out of the ordinary or the metaphysical. So I will say I was very attracted to it because I was being told that what I was seeing was not true.
About how old were you when that started?
When I started seeing things,
No, I know the 6 years old, but when you're you're wanting to know about astrology, like as early
oh,
as you can remember also?
no, actually, astrology probably came in around my teens. I didn't start studying it until a friend called me and said she met an amazing astrologer. And I went and met the astrologer and then asked her after my session if she did classes. And she said, if I could get together 10 people, she would teach us every other week. And I got 15 people together, and we took classes with her for 2 or 3 years. She was also a psychic medium and an astrologer.
That's very, very cool. Um, do you know the science behind the astrology and how it all began?
I do actually. It started with like herders in ancient Babylonian times just looking up at the stars and realizing that things would happen when stars and planets were in certain positions. For instance, like if there was a harsh Saturn aspect, something could happen to the king. So it was always at that time, it was involved with kings, kingdoms, and what was going on, like weather, anything that was affecting the society. So in those days, that's what they looked at. Eventually, it dribbled down to, normal people. But in the beginning, it was only for royalty. And so they would make assumptions. If this star is next, or if this planet is next to this planet, it means this. An eclipse. Everybody was afraid of eclipses, as they should be, because the sky went dark. You couldn't explain it. They noticed that certain things happened after eclipses, or maybe a week before an eclipse. So they started predicting.
So was there like a huge ledger that they kept?
I think basically there were a group of astrologers. Astrology was a science in those days. It turned into astronomy, but they had I don't know if it was scrolls or what they used, but they kept track. And they based new findings on their old findings. So, and they would observe. A lot of astrology is observation.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, we're all water and minerals, and so are the planets. Okay. The moon is the closest planet to us. And we know when there's a full moon, the water pressure in our body goes up. Hence the word lunatic. The oceans go up. Things get a little crazy because the water pressure everywhere has gone up. When you think about the other planets, if you think about Mercury, people are afraid of Mercury retrogrades, but it used to be a time to go within and finish old business. It's still that time to go within and finish old business. But, we are such a technical society, things don't go according to plan because they're just not supposed to, it's just the way it is. It's a time to reflect within. Each planet has an expression.
I like that word. I like that. Interesting. I know, but sometimes like with astrology, you can say like, well, this isn't going to happen for 2 more years or even 100 years incidents. How did they keep that kind of ledger?
I'm sure they use papyrus or scrolls, or they kept that information. In other words, astrologers, like what happened in last year's astrology or what happened in 2020 with COVID, we had been talking about that for, I don't know, maybe 30 years. I remember in the 70s, I was not an astrologer there, sitting around with a group of astrologers because I was fascinated by them. And they were saying Pluto was about to go into Scorpio. What sexually transmitted disease are we going to get? And we got AIDS. They could have never predicted it was AIDS, but that happened when Pluto went into Scorpio. Pluto rules sex and death. And you put those two together and, we came up with AIDS. If you look at 9/11, that happened right around the time Pluto went into Sagittarius, which rules religious wars. The Crusades were fought with Pluto and Sagittarius. So at that time, they did not look at Pluto. I'm just saying. Pluto, some astrologers still don't. Hellenistic astrologers do not look at Pluto. I'm a modern astrologer, and I feel like Pluto has a place.
It's very fascinating, actually. So I know we had told our viewers that we were going to be talking about the New Year's portal, and I have no clue what that is. So you're going to have to educate me and everybody else.
Okay. Okay, well, I got to thinking that, what we all try to do is New Year's. Everybody is, trying to like think about what they did last year, come up with, your resolutions list, mood boards. You're all thinking about what you're going to change. And I was thinking that New Year's is not just a reset. It's not just champagne, fireworks, the New Year's Eve kiss. It's a portal. It's a psychic doorway, a threshold that billions of people cross together, hoping that when we come out the other side, something will feel different. And maybe it can. Like New Year's celebration across countries, across cultures, across centuries, and belief systems are really about transformation and not timekeeping.
Powerful.
Yes. So I was thinking about that because with every situation that we know, people have marked the passage of time, not just with clocks and calendars, but with rituals, with symbols, with communal acts of transformation. And the New Year celebration is one of the oldest and most enduring of these timekeeping markers because it's fundamentally about transition. And we as humans have always observed patterns in the stars. You were just talking, it's a perfect segue, the moon, the sun, the seasons. And these markers gave structure to early society, signaling when to plant, when to harvest, when to rest, when to prepare. Over time, those natural cycles evolved into cultural rituals that symbolized, and I'm talking about New Year's, letting go of the past, inviting renewal, appeasing deities or spirits, and creating communal unity and shared direction.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about this last night because I'm not big on New Year's resolutions myself. And I guess as a fitness and yoga instructor, I feel like you should be doing this year round, but maybe the new year for certain people, it's maybe something to jumpstart them. I mean, how many people we see at the gym and in January and February, boom, they're all there. And then they fade off, July and August, they're all gone. And I like something that people can not only stay with, they'll stick with and make it a lifestyle change.
I agree with you. Well, with this portal, you have to have intention. You need to bring with you, it's like any kind of resolution or regime you start. You have to cross that line and say, things are going to be different. I am going to stop, reflect, reset all at once because every time you decide, oh, I'm going to get a new job, I'm going to start a yoga class, I'm going to go on a diet, I'm going to enjoy myself more, you're changing, you're resetting what you're doing. And it's like a shared pause. And, for me, anytime we say we're going to do something different, we are walking through a portal. And it's like why humans celebrate the passage of time. Like if you look at the ancient Babylonians, for instance, they had, I think it's called a kaitu, and their new year was celebrating spring. And so they reordered the world. And to me, spring makes sense because it's when light returns and crops begin to grow. And for me, that feels more like a new year. If you look at the, you look at the astrology wheel, it starts in spring with Aries, March 29th. March 26th. March 20th. What am I saying? Anyway, it starts early in, it starts late March. But my point is that it's when you plant crops, when things grow. To me, that feels like a new year. If you look at the Egyptians, it was about the Nile flooding because that would literally bring their life force back. Or if you look at the Romans, which really set up our Western calendar with our New Year, they celebrated it with the god Janus, who had two heads, one looking at the past and one looking forward. So it was doors, gates, the first day of the year, and we're coming up on one of the biggest New Years, which is the Chinese New Year. And the Chinese celebrate it with, theirs is about marks of renewal, cleansing, luck, ancestors. Like their celebration goes on for 15 days where they do all kinds of, like they're in preparation for it for almost a month. It is a big deal. The way they do it, and theirs starts the second new moon after the winter solstice. So, like each one, or if you look at the Jewish calendar, it's with Rosh Hashanah, where you take account, you ask to be forgiven for your sins, you release your debts, and you reset your soul. And that's done during harvest because the Jews feel that's when, the growing season and it was a spiritual accounting. So, it was a reset of one's moral and emotional alignment with the divine. So each culture, the Hindus, each region celebrates their new year at a different time. So, but it's something that we all do. And when we think about it, time is a construct.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the rituals around it are very real.
Correct. Yep. Emmy always says we're in all places at once. It's time. So technically January 1st is not an astrological event. It's like a man-made.
It was actually Julius Caesar started it, and then it became the Gregorian calendar, but it was the Julian calendar, I believe, at a specific time. But ours started with the Romans. But it's all based on rituals. It's one of the few times when we as a world in different cultures agree to stop, reflect, reset all at once. So when you think about it, we all are born, we all eat, we all, sleep, and we all celebrate New Year in different cultures. However we do it, there is a reset. Things are going to be different next year, And I agree with you, Nancy, because how many people, say, I have a friend who's Japanese, and she would come up, like we would start preparing 3 weeks in advance for New Year's. And we would go back and forth with our resolutions, what we were doing. We would have a formal meeting or dinner where we would talk, read out, discuss our resolutions, what we were doing. But that was more her culture than mine. And I thought, oh, wow, this is really cool. But it's also bringing awareness to what you want to change in your life. It's a marker, when you look at the Chinese, they clean. No, I'm sorry. It's the Hindus. They clean their homes to sweep out old energy. They wear new clothes. They cook special meals. They visit temples. They start new books or ledgers as a symbol of new beginnings.
I was going to say, so I guess if people feel the need to use January 1st to enter that portal, that new space in their life, then that's a good thing if they need that.
Yeah, but not every culture does it January 1st. The Chinese New Year is coming up.
Right.
The Islam New Year is goes along with the lunar calendar. That's going to be in June this year, I think. It always changes. So not everyone celebrates with the Gregorian calendar. It's very arbitrary.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
I
but
understand.
in every tradition, it's the same theme. Out with what's worn, in with what gives life. It's not a coincidence. It's human. And I want to say something. Portals aren't cozy. You don't step through a threshold without shedding something. And that's why New Year's or a new year can feel lonely, intense, even like you're grieving. Because you think about where you are versus where you thought you'd be. You wonder if the people around you still fit. You're wondering, like, why didn't I do this year? What's wrong with me? You face the gap between what you hoped for and what actually happened. And it's not a failure, it's what I call portal pressure. And it means you're in it, you're in the portal pressure.
I love where you come up with these names. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it for sure. I mean, being unstuck from something like that, yeah, it's not always comfortable, is it?
No, it's not. But you could create a portal anytime you want to make a change. It doesn't have to be just New Year's. And that's where the magic lives. That you don't have to be perfect. Say you didn't do it January 1st. You could do it February 1st. And you don't have to overhaul your whole personality. But if New Year is a doorway, what are you carrying through it? And what are you leaving behind? So with each time you make any kind of resolution, what are you carrying with it? And what are you leaving behind? It's more about taking this portal and making it intentional.
Yeah, I like that. Exactly. Intentional.
And people don't make resolutions by accident. We choose them. And that choice filters out what we're not willing to bring forward with clarity. It demands specifically, who are we becoming and what's no longer worth dragging in with you. So I just feel like portals don't open, you have to enter them. And whether or not you enter the New Year's portal is up to you. You can enter it at any time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Totally agree with that. So I would like to ask, in all your work as an astrologer, is there like a specific story you could share that it really helped enlighten or change somebody's life?
Oh, so many.
Is there something that sticks out in your mind?
I'm just trying to think. Um, uh, well, there was a story that changed my life. Um, I don't know if I'm comfortable sharing about someone else's life, but I could
Well, give me
change.
something about yours then.
Okay. So, well, this is how I became a medium. So I did a reading for a gentleman, and I said to that gentleman, at the time, I was not a medium, or I didn't know I was a medium. And I had said to him, do you see your loved ones who have passed in your sleep? And he said, yes. And I go, is this accelerating? He said, yes. I said, is it getting very bad? He said, yes. I could see that in his chart. And so I said, what are you doing? Because it's going to get worse. And he said, well, I've started drinking. And I said, you've started drinking? He said, well, I drink to fall asleep because I can't take it. And I flippantly said, which I sometimes do, there's classes you can take to learn how to control that. And he said, really? I didn't know that. And I'm like, yeah, you need, drinking like that is not healthy. It's not in your highest and best good. So he said, okay, finished the reading, got off the phone. And I thought, Iris, how do you know there are classes? Like, who told you? Like, sometimes I have a Sag moon, so things just fly out of my mouth. So
Yes, they do.
I started researching classes and I found Lisa Williams. And I thought, oh, she's got a school. She looks reputable. I read about her. I looked her up. And so I sent him that information. I said, here's a teacher. Here's a class. This is going to help you. So I'm like, okay, my work's done. I turn off my computer. I go to bed and I'm reading a book and I hear a voice that says, take that class. And I look around and I think, okay, you must be really tired. And I continue reading and I hear the voice again saying, take that class. And I thought, all right, I'm going to turn on the TV. So I turn on the TV and, I hear the voice again and again, but I finally fall asleep. And this is important, 11:57, the voice wakes me up screaming like it was shaking me. Take that class, take that class, take that class. And so I got out of bed and I thought, I'm going to take that class. And I go and sign up for the class. And I hit send and it's 11:57. I text a friend of mine who's a doctor of Oriental medicine, and I said, we're going to become mediums. We're taking this class. And here's the information. Sign up. And she calls me a half hour later, and she said, registration closed at midnight. I have to pay double if I want to take these classes, which she wasn't willing to do. So that reading changed my life in a big way.
It's so funny you tell that story because my very next question I had for you was that I didn't want to dismiss the fact that you are a medium. And in all honesty, I'm surprised, considering you started having visions at 6 years old, that you didn't pursue the mediumship before the astrology.
Well, remember, I was being told that I was a liar. And so I thought what I was seeing, even though I knew it was true, for me, I'm an Aquarian. And so if I have the facts, like, look, this is happening, I can say, this is why this happened and point to it. I needed to be able to argue what I was seeing or believing. And that was a way for me to do it. I couldn't say, well, I've had this vision, or I saw it in my head. I mean, that's all I had to say to my mother is I saw it in my head. And, for her to tell me that I was making things up and that just because I saw it in my head, it's not true. So yes. And I clearly was a medium all along because I have been guided by spirit. I can't tell you, my whole life. I worked, like spirit has saved me. That voice that was saying, take that class, has saved me so many times when I realized I needed to be turning left instead of right. And I did, many, many times. And I feel that is part of my gift, my abilities, is to know when danger is here, which way to turn.
Yeah.
I say danger.
Yeah, we don't need to. Spirit's not always danger.
No, I'm saying spirits protected me from danger.
Oh, yes.
What I'm saying is I lived in Manhattan where many times you get a feeling about something and you need to do something. I listened to those feelings. I listened and I knew because I listened to spirit. I felt like I have been guided my whole life by a loving, protective spirit. And I think many times people don't listen to, what we might call intuition. And the voice telling us, don't do that. Don't get in this relationship. You're following the same pattern again, that little nagging many of us don't listen to. And I can't say I've always listened to my spirit guides telling me, you don't do that, Iris. Burning Man was a perfect example.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't supposed to go to Burning Man because not only did 3 of my medium friends tell me, but also my guides were telling me. And but I had put together the group and I felt like I couldn't back out and went anyway, and ended up having a terrible bike accident, which I knew I was going to have a bike accident, and it happened.
Yes, you did. Yes,
And
you did.
even though I felt like the prophecy was that I would get in a bike accident and my bike would get stolen, when my bike got stolen, I thought, okay, my bike's stolen, so now I can ride someone else's bike. It doesn't work like that.
Right. I think it's important for our viewers and people to know that mediumship is not astrology and astrology is not mediumship.
Correct. It's totally different. And I do not confuse the two. When I am doing an astrological reading, it's an astrological reading. When I'm doing astrology, it's when I'm doing mediumship, it's mediumship. Although sometimes I will start with a client and I will get a message from spirit and I'll say, I just got a drop in from a spirit, one of your spirit guides, or from a spirit. Do you want to know what they have to say? And then I leave it up to the client whether or not they want to hear it. Actually, I saved someone's life doing that. It was at the beginning of the reading, and his father came in and said that his son was going to have a heart issue in a year, which could kill him. And
Wow.
I said to him, when was your last physical? So I don't want to say you're going to have a heart attack, which is going to kill you. I just said to him, when was your last physical? He said, about 2 years ago. I said, I don't want to worry you. And I looked at his chart and it was validated that there was going to be an issue. I said, I don't want to worry you, but I think, I said, what this spirit is telling me is that you need to have a thorough check of your heart. And that there's something happening that might not be obvious, and that it's not a rush, but you need to do it in the next couple of months, because I didn't want to make him upset. So he went and had a thorough checkup, and they didn't find anything, but something was gnawing at him, and he went to another doctor and had some other things checked. And I don't remember what the situation was, but he was on his way to a heart attack if he didn't have, I think something, it wasn't a stent, it was something else put in. But he thanked me, but it wasn't me, it was spirit. So there are occasions where spirit comes in when I'm doing an astrology reading, and I will say to people, do you want to know what one of your, what spirit is saying? And it's up to them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's the right way to do it too. And it's important for people to know that, because I've seen you do your mediumship and I know it's mediumship and not astrology. So,
No.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, people might not know that you are now living in Lilydale, and what made your decision to move to Lilydale? Because this is the first time you're doing the Lilydale radio show and you're in Lilydale.
Yes. Well, there's something about Lilydale. First of all, it's a quaint Victorian town, and I know I've had lifetimes during Victorian times, and it really resonates with me. Also, first time I came to Lilydale, I felt like I had come home. I can't describe it, but I really felt like it was home. And I just feel very safe and secure here in this community.
But it's such a vast change, from Manhattan, from California. How does it feel to you?
Well, it's different. I am annoyed with the fact that I can't snap my fingers and have things delivered. Um,
No.
that, things that used to take a day could take 8 days, 10 days, you know. I keep getting, like, I ordered something that was supposed to be here on the 23rd. It just arrived because of snow, of this, of that. So that's a little different, but I guess it's teaching me patience. And then also that I'm used to 24-hour towns. And so
Yeah.
it's been different in that way, and to be able to walk to get to places. And here, I walk to the lake.
Right down the street. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. What do you feel, in this few months that you've been here? What's the most special thing to you about being in Lilydale?
Well, I really feel like the community here is it's very special. There's a lot of things to do. There's a lot of people to do things with. And then also how helpful everyone is to each other. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is it's very special that people really care. I've lived in places, in apartment buildings where I didn't know who my neighbors were. And here, I went to an event recently and someone introduced themselves to me as they lived down the street and they were in for the weekend, and they heard I had moved in. I mean, it's really nice that way. And people are just very generous with each other.
Yeah, that's nice to put it that way for sure. Would you have ever imagined a year ago that you'd be moving to Lilydale?
No, not even.
That wasn't in your astrological charts?
Well, it was in my chart that I'm going to move. So I have Jupiter in Cancer in my fourth house, and Jupiter was conjunct that. So usually when that happens, you move, and Jupiter is abundance, big. So, I got a pretty nice size house. So I knew I was going to buy something. I didn't know that it was going to be this.
Yeah, because you would have asked me a year ago, I'd be like, "Oh, she'll never move to Lilydale." But it's lovely that you're here.
It
It's
wasn't even on my radar. I heard someone was selling a house here, and I'm like, hmm. All of a sudden, it felt, and interestingly enough, other mediums had seen me moving to a small community along the lake, and like, or water, either the ocean, which fit for me, or a lake, but not in a big city. And I was heading for either Paris or Boston.
right. Yeah, and like you said, you're used to the snow with Chicago, so Lilydale's nothing with the snow, huh?
And it's really not that cold here for me when you consider Chicago is so much colder.
Yeah,
Um,
so much colder.
yeah. So yeah, I like the weather. I know that's odd. I know a lot of people don't like winter, but I do.
It is a little odd, but it's okay. Um, I'm thrilled that you're living in Lilydale, and I know you're gonna do great things for Lilydale, so I'm excited about that possibility for you.
Thank you,
So
Nancy.
I always end with the question that I like to ask people. What is the most important lesson you have learned on your spiritual journey?
Um, I feel like that life is a process, and that we're all here to learn, and that learning is what this lifetime is about. And I'm talking about not only, nourishing the intellect, but I'm talking about the spiritual and the emotional, that we're here to learn spiritually and emotionally. And that that just because something works today doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow, and that we are constantly evolving. And that is our lesson, is that we are evolving and growing and really reaching for a higher level of consciousness.
I like that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. We're always learning. And spiritualists, that's what it's always about, right? We'll never know it all. It's good to encourage conversation about it and to learn from each other. So I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers for the upcoming year astrologically?
Well, I think I said it on my I said it on Instagram or TikTok, is that if last year was the prelude for this year. So we've got both Neptune and Saturn going into Aries, and that's a big deal. Neptune hasn't been in Aries for 168 years. And they're coming together. And the last time Neptune was in Aries, we had the Industrial Revolution, because basically, when you think about Neptune, is people's vision, it's their spirituality, it's their hopes, their dreams. And then you've got the warrior, Aries. So it's in Aries right now. So people are going to fight for what they believe in. The Impressionists start during that time. But also we had several wars during that time because people fought for what they believed in. With Saturn in Aries, it's going to put the brakes on things a bit. We also have Gemini. We have Uranus going into the Gemini, and it dipped its toe in last year, but it's going to be there for 6 years, and it hasn't been in Gemini for the last 88 years. So we're going to see that combined with Pluto and Aquarius. We're going to see mad technology like we have never seen before. And also, every time Uranus has gone into Gemini, we have had a war. But I don't think the wars are going to look like the wars of old time. I think it could be a technical war. It's not going to be the kind of wars that we've known, because we have progressed, and so has our ways of fighting,
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. For sure. Well, Iris, it has been a pleasure as always. Thank you so very much with your busy schedule for taking the time. Ask Iris Libby, yes, on TikTok, Instagram. Go like her, go watch her videos. You put them out pretty much every day, don't you?
Yeah.
So they're fun. So thank you so very much for being with me this evening. And thank you all for joining us this evening. I'll be back again in 2 weeks for another episode of Enlightening Your Way. Please check back on this Facebook page for everything going on at Lilydale. This is the official Lilydale Assembly Facebook page. Also, my Instagram, nancy.k.lombardo, and my motto, protecting and serving your well-being. My name is Nancy Lombardo. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you, Iris. Good evening, everybody.